Now available on Blu-ray from MVD is the 1990 Estevez Brothers Men at Work. Estevez Brothers film Men at Work. Sheen Brothers? Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez star in 1990's Men at Work, directed by Emilio Estevez. This is a film that I saw, and I happen to have, this is a rare occasion here, I happen to have a copy of it right here. This is the Blu-ray, and this is, MVD has been doing this, the MVD Rewind collection. I dig this. So it looks like the old Media Home Entertainment video boxes from the 80s, and it's got fake video store stickers on it, and this is a slipcase. So you take it out, and it still has sort of that minus the video store sticker look. And then it's the Blu-ray. It's a product packaging review too, because I don't often get to do this. So you get the disc, you get a little mini poster, and on the inside it's a reversible cover, is alternate artwork. So that's pretty cool if you're a fan of this movie. So back to the actual film itself. So I saw this movie, I remember when this came out back in 90, and I remember seeing it was pretty heavily advertised. I don't remember what studio, MGM it looks like. MGM or a subsidiary, Mary Ryan, put this out back in 1990, and it was kind of a big deal that the two brothers were together in a movie. They've since done other things. They did, what was it, Rated X, which is the Mitchell brothers story. But at the time, I don't know that they had worked together. Maybe they have. Somebody will certainly correct me if I'm wrong. And they were both, had a bunch of hits at the time, and pre-Major League, post-Major, right around the time that Charlie Sheen did Major League, and Estevez had done a bunch of things, Young Guns and all that. And this came out as a comedy, and I remember doing okay in the theater. The commercials played heavily on TV, but I remember being a little bit offended at the time because they stole a joke from Better Off Dead, which is one of my favorite movies, which at the time was only about 5 years old, where they find a dead body in a garbage can or an oil drum, and a African-American actor looks down and says, "Boy, that's a shame when somebody be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that." Now, the line was slightly different in Men at Work than it was in Better Off Dead. Keith David says the line in this film, and but I remember having like a beef with this movie at the time, because I was just like, that movie's not that old. You're stealing the line from Better Off Dead. It's not like Better Off Dead was like an underground movie nobody saw. So I didn't go out to see it when it came out. I eventually saw this. I either rented it on videotape or I watched it on cable. And at the time, I just didn't think it was very funny. So I always kind of wrote this movie off. And over the years, there were a lot of people who always really said they liked this movie. They tended to be people younger than me, but people I knew would be like, "Oh yeah, Men at Work is great, Men at Work is great." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I've got all their albums." They're like, "No, the Sheen Brothers movie." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that movie, I didn't care for it that much." So it was interesting to see it again with older eyes. I'm always willing to give a movie another shot. I'm not one of those guys, though, when somebody was like, "You really have to watch it twice." I'm like, no. If I've just gone to see a movie and I didn't like it, I'm not going to watch it 2 or 3 times to get it. That's just a waste of time to me. But if 20 years passes, I might give a movie another shot, because in that amount of time, you're kind of a different person. Like I was 16, I guess, when this movie came out, maybe a little bit older. I'm bad with math. So watching it again as somebody who is, shall we say, a few years past 16, I still didn't like it. It was, to me, at best, this movie was sort of a pleasant diversion. I just didn't find it funny. The story is that Emilio Estevez, and who also directed, co-wrote, co-stars, or maybe he wrote it. They are brothers, I believe, and they are garbage men in the big city in LA, or somewhere near LA. And they're just sort of slackers. They sort of have a dream, or Estevez has a dream of opening up a surf shop near the beach, and Sheen is just like, do I have to show up for work? So it's like the slacker comedy thing. And basically the short version of this is, one day on their route, they find a garbage can with the aforementioned perfectly good white boy dead inside, and he is a political figure who's been bumped off by some scheming, conniving, criminal polluter factory industry guy, and it's more complicated than that, but let's just say they're involved with this trying to hide the body and find out who killed this guy and not get killed by the guy who was the killer and all this other stuff. And Keith David is along for the ride, literally, as a guy who's been sent by the company to basically ride along with these garbage men to give them one last chance and keep an eye on them and make sure that they're, handling the garbage the way they should. Keith David is wonderful in this. The material, I think, is just not that great. But Keith David is committed to this role as this sort of psycho Vietnam vet is like a kind of a hack term and a hack character idea by this point, but he's a very intense veteran who we presume was in the Nam. He may say that or not, but for this era, he would have been a Vietnam vet. And he's funny because he's just super intense about things. But overall, I just didn't think it was that funny. It felt a lot like it was aimed at kids or teenagers, which it very well may have been. But watching it now, I think it's one of those movies that maybe you had to be at the right age when you saw it. I don't know. I asked a friend of mine, we were having lunch, and I just had watched this the night before and really didn't care for it. And I was like, "You ever see Men at Work?" And he's like, "Oh, I love Men at Work. It's one of my favorite movies. I quote it all the time. I met Keith David at a convention, and I had him sign." And I'm like, "Okay, so maybe it's just me." At any rate, did I mention that Dean Cameron is in this film? At any rate, I don't care for Men at Work, having watched it more than once, but I know a lot of people do. So let's talk about the package, because if you love Men at Work, all this crap that I said, it's just like, he's an idiot. What does he know? And you may be quite right. The packaging, as I showed you, nice packaging for the setup. No real extras on this. The transfer looks good. It's in HD, so if you've never had Men at Work in HD, MVD will provide that to you. Nice upgrade from the old tape, or I presume there was probably a Laserdisc at one point, or the DVD. There are trailers for other MVD features that are similar, like Ski School, like other kind of late 80s, early 90s, goofy, teeny, not small, but teen-ish sex comedies and things like that are on this. So those are nice and appropriate, but there's no commentary, there's no deleted scenes, there's no behind the scenes, there's no radio spots, there's no stills, there's no thought-provoking critical analysis of Men at Work. That's up to you to do at home, perhaps while you watch it or afterwards. But let me know, are you a big fan of Men at Work? Because I can't, it's not a film for me. Again, a pleasant-ish diversion to me, but I don't know that I really even giggled during this movie, and I wanted to. I really did want to like this movie. It just didn't work for me. So on Blu-ray from the MVD Rewind collection is Men at Work.